This is Jill Pack with the Seasons of Joy podcast. This is episode number 160, entitled The Power of Your Next Conversation. Are you a woman of faith who is struggling to navigate your current season of life? Do you feel like life is just happening to you instead of for you? My name is Jill Pack, and I'm a certified faith-based life coach and a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I want you to know that no matter your season or your circumstance, it is possible to create a more joyful life, and I would love to show you how. Are you ready? Let's go. Hello, my friends. Welcome to this week's episode. How are you doing today? Summer is in full swing, and I have actually been traveling quite a bit over the last couple of weeks. So this episode is a little slow, getting out a little later than I hoped, but that's okay. I promise it will be worth the wait if you were even waiting. But before I dive into that, I just wanted to give another shout out and reminder about my conversation project. This is something that I'm working on, and what it entails is having conversations with midlife women of faith. And these conversations focus on the unique experiences, challenges, and insights that come in this season of life, especially around how you navigate conflict. So be thinking, like, what does conflict mean to you? Or are you afraid of conflict? How do you typically handle conflict in your life? If any of this resonates with you and you're interested in having a conversation with me or learning more about these conversations, there is a link in the show notes, and you can find it there, or you can email me at jill@seasons-coaching.com and just have the subject line Conversation Project. So I would love to have a conversation with you. So now on to this week's episode. I recently read a book by Jefferson Fisher, and it's called Your Next Conversation: Argue Less, Talk More. Jefferson Fisher is a trial lawyer, a writer, and a speaker who helps people communicate better. I first found him on Instagram, where he shares short, practical reels from his car with different conversation communication tips. And they are powerful, and he's kind of taken off. And so he decided to write a book. Now, I not only listened to the Audible version a few months ago, but I just finished the hardcover book version recently, and I love it even more. If you haven't had a chance to read it yet, I would invite you to do so. I'm going to include a link in the show notes, and it is definitely worth your time. I believe this book will change the way you think about difficult conversations. Our conversations, especially the hard ones, can be the very thing that help us create real, deep, and connecting relationships. And isn't that what we all crave? It is actually what we all need, because we've been divinely designed for connection and belonging. When we feel like we belong and we are connected to ourselves and others, we thrive. When we don't, we flounder. We disconnect. We begin seeing others as the enemy, a problem to be solved, or something to fix. We no longer see others as people, divine children of God, but as obstacles to overcome, objects that stand in our way. Now, I'm not going to cover everything in this book, but I want to highlight a few things, a few of my takeaways, and how they've helped me. On the very first page of his book, Jefferson shares this quote by Dave Mason, and it says this: "There ain't no good guy, there ain't no bad guy. There's only you and me, and we just disagree." Think about that for a minute. Society teaches us that there are good guys and bad guys, and this idea is what makes up great stories and books and movies, right? Yet it usually creates contention in the real world and in our relationships. When we believe that another person is a bad guy, then we are going to do all we can to be the good guy. We are going to try and win the argument. But let's pause a minute and ask ourselves, at what cost? Jefferson shares what he calls the essentials, and that's kind of what I wanted to talk about today are these 3 concepts that frame the way we show up in our conversations, and especially if we want to show up in a different way so that we can be an influence for good in the world. These 3 essentials will help you transform your next conversation so you can build a better relationship with yourself and with that person maybe you're really struggling with. So the first essential is never win an argument. Now, I remember being in a conversation with someone a few years ago who was determined to prove their point and to win the argument. I've done it myself in other conversations too. But in this situation, I was on the receiving end of an invitation to a competition of right versus wrong, as society has taught us all, right? There's winners and there's losers. Just look at the political climate. No matter what cable news station you watch, the commentators are talking about who is wrong and who is right. Often, if they have opposing views, they are actually talking over each other to prove their point. This is the world that we live in. Yet what if disagreements are an opportunity to learn more instead of shutting the other person down so that you can win? So I remember sitting in this difficult conversation that I just mentioned, feeling smaller and smaller. I actually just wanted to disappear. I wanted to hide under the table. There was not connection or understanding. Now, I'm not suggesting that the lack of connection or understanding was only on the part of the other person. I played my part into this too. By shutting down, I wasn't open to learning more about their perspective. I lost control of myself, of the moment, of the pace of the conversation, and of my voice by shutting down. I gave my control away because I was afraid. Avoiding conflict was something I did and have done for a long time because it's scary to me. I ran away from conflict. I still do sometimes, but I'm getting better. But by running, our relationships are harmed and connections is lost. Winning an argument isn't really winning anyway. We lose things that actually matter most to us: trust, respect, connection. But we come away with nothing other than the prize of contempt. Nothing is resolved or repaired. Winning the argument comes at a high cost. And is it worth it? Look at what happens on social media. People aren't afraid to battle it out on the internet behind their screens of safety, trying to win people over to their opinion. Every time I see a post that puts down another group of people, no matter what side of the issue I am on, I am not persuaded to change my opinion or even agree with that person. That maybe in the issue I do, but the way they're handling the situation, I don't. And it doesn't encourage me to join in the agreement or the conversation. I'm usually just embarrassed for the person that's posting or commenting. I love this quote by Jefferson. It says, "The fastest way to lose your peace of mind is to give someone a piece of yours. Beating out someone in an argument may feed your ego, but it still leaves you hungry. Rarely, if ever, does winning in communication lead to better things in your life." That's powerful. And that is why we don't ever want to win an argument. And that is why it's one of Jefferson's essentials. When we stop believing that there is a winner or a loser, we can actually begin to see the other person as a person. And not just a person, but a person that has struggles and pain that's human and divine. We can see that humanity. Conflict can be the very thing that actually can move us toward positive change in our lives and in our relationships. But here comes the rub. We have to be willing to face and connect with the person we are in conflict with. And it happens one conversation at a time. I remember another time when I was standing in my bedroom closet crying. One of my adult children and I had just had a conversation and it did not go well. I'd removed myself from the situation and I was replaying what had just happened in my head when a text came through asking me if they could come and talk to me. I'll be honest, I didn't want to. I needed a minute still, and so I didn't reply right away. I needed that pause to collect myself and to decide how I wanted to show up in the next conversation, which is Jefferson's second essential, the next conversation. Jefferson says that when we're going to walk into our next conversation, we don't want to just rely on how it went in our head, right? We want to be realistic and intentional. And then he shares 2 questions that can help us navigate this. The first question is, what is the goal for this conversation? And the second question is, which of my values do I need to meet that goal? These questions aren't meant to solve everything all at once. They are an opportunity to connect, share, and grow together one conversation at a time. And we do this for the rest of our lives. So my goal for the conversation with my adult child was to see their pain that they were feeling and to let them know that I love them no matter what, as well as sharing with them my boundary around how I was willing to be treated. As I've thought about this experience with my adult child, I realized that I did ask myself questions that were very similar to the ones he posed. Taking the time to focus on what my goal was and the value I wanted to lean into changed the trajectory of our next conversation. This helped me leave that conversation full of hope and love, knowing that I showed up in alignment with my value of love and connecting with my child who was actually hurting. That's why they behaved the way they did. It was from a place of pain. And so this leads me to the third essential, the truth about connection. Jefferson defines connection as having understanding and acknowledgement of each other. We need both so that we can make connection. If I'm telling my husband something, he may understand what I'm saying, but he doesn't show it to me, I won't connect with him. If he acknowledges what I'm telling him, but doesn't understand it, he won't connect with me. Understanding is what happens inside of us, and acknowledging is what happens outside of us. Both are required to create that connection. Often, people misunderstand this by believing that in order to connect with someone, they have to agree. But the truth is we can acknowledge and understand each other without agreeing. We may even still feel hurt by what another person says or does. We don't have to like what they say or do, but we can learn to understand it. This is what actually creates space for disagreement and differing opinions while also connecting. Connection doesn't only come when everything is going great and we're getting along. In fact, connection is created in difficult times too. Just like in the story with my adult child, connection came through that hard conversation. I wasn't totally sure how that conversation was going to go. And most of it was really out of my control. However, I could choose whether or not I was going to try and connect. Jefferson does make a powerful point in this section of his book on connection. He says, sometimes not connecting is the right choice. Sometimes disconnection is the answer. Not every conversation needs connection. There are some interactions in which you shouldn't even be having. Some people don't want to be reached. That doesn't make you a failure. That often makes you wise. I love that because in my first example, that connection maybe isn't the answer right now where that relationship is. And it doesn't mean it won't come. It just means for right now, maybe not connecting is the right choice. The goal for communication shouldn't be that they're easy. Jefferson says honest communication has nothing to do with what's happy or comfortable. Connection sometimes means having conversations that are going to be uncomfortable. What you need is the control and the confidence to have them anyway. So I love that. I love that confidence to have them anyway. It's going to stretch us out of our comfort zone, right? But that's what's going to create honest communication. So, in the book, in this beginning part where he talks about these essentials, he shares 3 things that we need to have in order to build connection through confidence. If we don't have confidence, it's hard to build that connection. And so, how can we build on our confidence and build connection? What are the things we need? Well, he shares 3. Self-awareness. This means we need to pay attention to how we're feeling in the present moment and why we're feeling this way. When we take the time to do that, we are better able to choose the actions we want to take, acting in a way that aligns with our values. This helps to take control of ourselves. When I look at the 2 examples I've shared, the 2 conversations I've had, in the first example, I did not have self-awareness. I pushed down the feelings that I was having, and so I shrunk smaller and smaller. That cuts off connection, right? So I needed to pay attention to what I was feeling and why I was feeling that way, and then choosing on purpose the next actions I would take, and especially the actions that align with the person I want to be. The second thing we need is understanding, and this kind of, goes back to that idea of what connection is. But when we believe that everyone should believe the same way we do, we are forgetting that it's okay. It's actually okay to have different opinions and different perspectives. We are then viewing them as an obstacle to overcome. Just because someone believes differently than we do doesn't make them less of a person. When we seek to understand, our ability to appreciate the perspective of another person increases, which then strengthens and deepens our relationship with them. So we may not agree, but we can work to understand. That is a powerful thing we need in order to create connection and kind of build on the confidence that we're working for. And so in the second example that I had, compared to the first one, is I stepped into understanding my adult child, right? I began to understand why they were showing up the way they were showing up. And it allowed me to step back, pay attention to how I felt, and just kind of see their perspective through the pain and struggle that they were having. Understanding the other person's perspective and experience and struggle allow us to better connect with them. Number 3, the thing we need to continue to create connection and confidence in our conversations is self-assurance. When we hide from those difficult conversations, in a way, we're preventing ourselves from personal growth. When we don't believe in ourselves, we show up small in all areas of our life. Jefferson says, honesty in communication requires confidence. A connection and confidence that asserts your needs and ensures that your voice is heard, your boundaries are respected, and your number one advocate is yourself. When we have that self-assurance, we can show up in those conversations with confidence, which allows us to build connection. In the first example of a conversation that I shrunk and was small, it held me back from honestly communicating. Right? I didn't have the confidence in it. And so I didn't assert my needs. I wasn't allowing my voice to be heard, and my boundaries were not respected. And so when we go into a conversation, we want to create connection, we've got to go in there with self-assurance that we can speak up. Doesn't mean we have to be angry or mad. We can do it with kindness and honesty. And that is the very thing that's going to create connection. Confidence means having conversations when we are scared. Confidence means we embrace the possibility that we actually might be doing it wrong and admitting it. Confidence means embracing all the messiness and the mistakes that come with the process, the learning process of honest communication, right? On our way to creating that connection, right? To begin connection, we have to bring the confidence with us. We have to show up scared and embrace doing it wrong and the messiness that comes with it. As I've reflected on the conversation I shared at the beginning of the podcast, where I shrunk smaller and smaller, I've come to believe it was a powerful learning experience for me, though it didn't go like I hoped. The lessons that I learned actually don't have anything to do with how the other person showed up, but everything to do with how I showed up. So even though that relationship is actually still in need of repair, I can take away some insights for my next conversations, whether it's with that person or someone else. And so I want to share with you 10 of my takeaways from Jefferson Fisher's book. And there are so many. This is just the 10 takeaways around the 3 essentials. So there's so much to learn from him. So I'm just going to share 10. Number 1. It isn't about winning or losing the argument. It's about seeking to understand and acknowledging another person's perspective, whether I disagree or not. Number 2, I can focus on the divinity, humanity, and pain of another person to better understand their perspective. Number 3, I don't have to tackle every issue and solve every problem. I just need to focus on the next conversation. And I can do this by asking myself what the goal is for the conversation and what value do I need to tap into in order to meet that goal. In other words, how do I want to show up in my next conversation? Number 4, connection requires both acknowledging and understanding. I can create connection with others even in difficult conversations because it isn't about agreeing on everything. It's about holding space for another person's perspective. Number 5, sometimes connection isn't the answer. Sometimes others don't want it, and it really is okay. And maybe connection with somebody isn't the best thing right now. Number 6, it is important to be self-aware of how I feel in the conversation and why I'm feeling this way. And getting curious and asking myself, what can I learn from this, from how I'm feeling? And then slowing down and paying attention so that I can take control of myself and my actions, choosing on purpose the person I want to be in that moment and aligning myself with the values that are important to me. Number 7, shrinking and being small in a difficult conversation doesn't allow me to grow. It keeps me from expanding as a person in all areas of my life, and it doesn't create connection. Number 8, confidence means showing up even when I'm scared, embracing my imperfections, and being okay with being wrong. And number 9, honest communication is one of the kindest things we can do for each other. And number 10, conversations are an opportunity to learn, not something to prove, and I don't have to be afraid of them. They are the very thing that make life richer and deeper. I can't say enough about this book. There are so many good things that I didn't have time to share with you, but I honestly just think you should read it. Hopefully this has perked your interest so that you want to get this book and learn what you can about your next conversation and how to argue less and talk more. Because we all have difficult people in our lives, and we need to be having more difficult conversations. Your next conversation might just be the beginning of something beautiful. You have the ability to grow in a way you never have before and transform how you interact with others. By changing you, what effect and influence can you have in the world around you? That's all I have for you today. Thank you for being here. And until next time, find one thing you can shift going into your next conversation and see what happens. Thank you for tuning in to the Seasons of Joy podcast. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. And if you liked what you heard, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share with your friends and family. If you want to learn more about me or how to work with me, just visit my website, www.seasons-coaching.com, and have a joyful week.